welcome back. This is G-Man, My World 67, and what you're looking at here is a 1936-37 American Flyer Hiawatha engine shell. These were originally wind-up, and then later on they went to electric. And so these bodies had dual slots on both sides. This side you had the hole for the wind-up, and this side you had the slot for the brushes, and so you could get to the drive gear or the wind-up gear. This particular shell is not really in that bad a shape. You've got a few scratches, a little paint loss. Actually, the coloration's good on it. It does have a yellowing, like it's got a little old lacquer over the top of it, but I think that's actually nicotine from being in a house where someone smoked for years and years and years. I did try to wash it and clean it up, and I got it as best as I could. I was thinking about repainting it, but I think I'm just going to touch it up and leave it like it is. Now, in the back side here, you see a hole, and it has one on the other side just like it. And this was for the mounting screws. Here there was two holes that was added. I imagine, judging from the look of things, on the inside of the shell, and these two holes, one on each side, someone had refitted it with another motor. And they had also cut in to this brace to do that. And they apparently drilled holes on both sides to mount the motor in place. Now originally, like I said, this has two holes here and one right here in the middle. This was no doubt for probably a reversing unit or something. I've never seen anything through one of these. I own another one, and it doesn't have anything through there. Here would have been your clockwork release to allow it to go forward. So anyway, I took the epoxy and plumbing epoxy and plugged the holes, and I'm going to sand that down a little later as soon as it completely dries and take care of that. Now here, this shell wasn't like that when I got it. That happened today when I was actually cleaning it. Some reason or another, as I was rubbing it, going back and forth with the toothbrush in that area, that's what happened. So the paint must have been bad there after all. This paint is over 80 years old, so who knows? But we'll find a way to touch that up, and we'll live with it just like it is. Here was a mounting screw originally, so there's a hole there. It was a mounting screw for the light, and as the motor we're going to put in this engine has a light already mounted to it. We don't need that hole, so I plugged that hole with good old plastic putty or epoxy, plumber's epoxy, and we're going to smooth that out and make that A and that F look like new. This was also bent up, this cowling. It was bent up. I imagine for some reason or another, the motor that they had in there did not sit high enough, allow the shell to sit high enough that it would stay up off the rails. So they took this and bent it upwards. Outside of that, there was nothing actually wrong with the shell. A few scratches, as I say, a little discoloration. And so we'll touch it up, get it all finished, and it'll be a really nice looking shell once again. Okay, had dropped the camera there for a minute. Trying to do a selfie. So, I did straighten this back out as best as I could. Got it all bent back down to the proper contour, but you'll still see there's a little dent there. And as I say, we'll touch that up. This little indenture here, we're not going to be able to do anything about that. But otherwise, it looks pretty good. It's almost back to where it should be. It's also missing one of these on one side and one on the other side here. And these are cotter keys. And that was kind of neat. I always thought the way they use cotter keys to do things. It's got the original coupler on it. Okay, let's get started. Now I told you we was going to put a Marx motor in here. I have two types of Marx motors. This one I think you might have seen in an earlier video last year, maybe. I rebuilt this, got it on eBay, and it runs perfectly. But I rebuilt it actually for another project, and so, but it would work in this shell and look pretty good. And this is a Marx motor, but we're not going to use that one. We're going to use this one. Now this is a Marx motor I took out of a 1666 that you guys may have seen that I got in, and it was just junk. It was all broken up, and the motor itself had one wheel, this rear wheel. On the other side was it was the one on this side was replaced with a wrong wheel, and that wrong wheel caused the bearing to be worn out. It was egg-shaped, and it also caused this drive wheel right here to be worn out. It had a couple broken teeth in it, and unfortunately it didn't damage the drive gear, or in turn this other gear. But I had to replace this gear, and I replaced it wheel with this wheel here, and luckily the side arms here, side rods, were those that you can take off and put back on with the they have the die cast knobs on the end of the wheels, and so that makes it a little easier. Screwing them on and off is great, but that made it easier to find one to fit it. And so I found the correct wheel for it and put it on there. We got it going. Now up here, when I got this 1666 that this came in, there was no reverse unit in it. Guy says, oh, it won't reverse. And I'm like, okay, duh, that's why it won't reverse. There's no reverse unit in it. Now, whether it came like that from the factory, he took it out, or someone else took it out at some time or another, I really couldn't tell. And it doesn't really matter. It had some other little minor problems besides the wheels that were electrical, and I took care of those. I cleaned the points. I just went all the way through it, tore it apart, broke it down, and now it runs great. The light lights. It didn't light at first. I just put another bulb in it. It still had the original bulb in it, and it burned out consequently last night while I was running the engine, and so it finally gave up the ghost. But then again, that was about That bulb was an original bulb and probably about 70 years old. So it was time for it to go. Now, what I've done here, in order to make this work in this shell, I went to the hardware store and I bought what's called a mending brace. It's this right here. Come 4 in a pack, and they're kind of pricey. Got those at the hardware store. And I came back and I had already pre-measured what it was going to take to put that in. The holes actually in the brace were already there and they matched. So this hole and this hole. So I didn't have to do any drilling in there. I did have to drill a hole in this brace to set this screw. Now under this screw is also a washer to raise this up, to level this thing out. And then here I took a popsicle stick, and I really wanted to use a piece of plastic, but I didn't have one, so like I wanted, and so I used a popsicle stick, broke it off, and then hot glued it in place, and it won't go anywhere. It should last forever. And this is also glued down to this brace, and we got it screwed in place. I took this screw, put it in from the bottom, glued it in place. It has also a washer underneath the bottom side of it, under the screw, and they're both glued along with the screw in this hole, and then wrapped it with tape as insulation to keep it off the top of the coil, which, if you can see, I don't know whether you can see it or not, but there is a gap under there, so it's not touching. But we wanted to wrap it anyway, just in case. Okay, having done all that, the motor's going, ready to run, and the engine is ready to mount. Now, I planned on showing you some of the steps that I did in this video, and I had started a previous video, and some reason or another my phone's been acting up and it dropped the video. Well, I had already had just about all the work completed that I was doing on the assembly of the motor, and so we had to start another video and start it from there. Okay. All right. Let's put the camera on the stand and see what we've got here. Well, first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to put the motor in the shell. Well, also I had to these pieces right here were bent out along the sides, flat, and I had to bend them back. And of course, you know, when you bend metal back, and I was going to heat it, and I didn't do it, because when you heat it and you bend it back, a lot of times it breaks. And this one came out okay. This one began to crack just as I set it back in place. And so what I did was I took some crazy glue and I put it in the crack, and I did this one also inside and outside, let it dry, and then I took some hot glue and reinforced it on the back sides. Now it's actually stronger than it was when it was new. Anyhow, we take the motor and we set it down inside. Get these drive rods out of here. And those little flangey dealies that I just showed you, they're actually for the guide rods or the drive rods. We'll stick them in place, turn it over, line it up, and we'll take the nut. Now if I could have did it from the top side, then it would be a flat screw on the top, and that would have been great. But unfortunately I did it. Now we don't have to worry about aligning the motor up, because once we get this motor set in place, the way I made the frame and everything, it lines up itself directly, and then once you put your drive rods in these guides, they stay in place. Now I'm going to tighten it up just a little bit, but I'm not going to tighten it all the way up in this video, because I'm going to do another video and come back and show you how we progressed on it as to these little minor repairs and the touch-up. But I just wanted to show you what we've done. It's a fairly easy fix. Building the bracket, everything overall took me about 2-3 hours by the time I got it all laid out and put together, and went back and sanded down these holes, set the epoxy in, and got it ready. So 2 or 3 hours total, or less. Actually doing the motor, if you got a motor that's ready to run and it's that type, it's just a matter of drilling your hole, putting on your bracket, lining it up. You're looking at 15, maybe 35 minutes if everything goes well. But anyway, there it is. And I wanted to show you how it runs. We'll get the old trusty test track out. Oh. All right. Turn it toward the camera a little bit more. Now keep in mind, there's no reverse unit in this, so it just goes forward. Now I don't mind it not reversing, because I don't do a whole lot of switching. Just don't have enough room on my layout. I got maybe 2 or 3 switches on there. But anyhow, now I have myself another Hiawatha, and we'll get those cotter keys in there. We'll get this taken care of, get it touched up, and we'll be back with another video. All right, that's all I have for you now. As always, happy rails to you until we meet again. If you have any questions, be sure to contact me at gman1924@hotmail.com. Bye for now.